Welcome to Embodied Microdosing, where we explore the miracles that happen when we combine intentional doses of sacred mushrooms with trauma-informed somatic practices. Hi, I'm Rai, and this ministry is on a mission to help you embody healing. Let's answer your questions and call in expansion so you can integrate these highly effective evidence-based tools into your journey. Embodied microdosing is where science and spirituality meet to awaken the healer within. Let's take one conscious breath together. And begin.
Hooray! We're here and back for another episode of the Embodied Microdosing podcast. I'm so glad you're here. The downloads have been getting bigger and bigger every week. More and more people are listening to the podcast. If you're one of those who's been regularly tuning in, thank you so much for being here. It means a lot to be able to share my message in this longer format. You know, I am on TikTok. I am on Instagram, although I spend more time in Instagram stories because my reels don't get very much play anymore. But TikTok likes to put me out there still. And you know, as much shit as we can talk about social media, because it really can be shitty and addicting and make you feel crazy. It's really important to create, you know, boundaries and intentions around it. And I'm always in the constant practice of redefining those. It has a lot of value. I like it. I like being able to share in those little short inspirational bursts. And, you know, that some of the replies I get or the messages like, well, how do I do this? And can you go into this more? I can't on TikTok, but I can here on the podcast. And certainly if you join in on any of my offerings, one-on-one work, joining in with the community, coming to groups, and tapping into the offerings of the ministry, yeah, we can go deeper. For example, last week in Breathwork Church, we were really getting into the message around letting go, how we let go, through what mechanism, hint, hint, through the body. And, you know, it felt so good to be able to just channel and share in that way with the community. There were maybe 13 or 14 people there. Some of them just really, the tears actually started flowing as soon as the message did. And that's not me, you know, making people cry. It's this permission of what happens when we can tune in to something inspiring and tune out of the things that have got us feeling overwhelmed and scattered and pulled in a million directions. And I understand that feeling really well. And I'm glad you're choosing to tune in and hopefully to go within. That's really what I'm inviting you into inside of this ministry. The opportunity to close your eyes. You don't always have to close your eyes, but that certainly makes the point, right? Of closing down our obsession with and fixation on and constant, you know, ways that we are determined by the external variables, ways our behavior is modeled by that, formed by that, shaped by that. And what happens when we just breathe, even notice our breath as it is without changing anything, and tune into the internal landscape? This is the place a lot of people avoid. You are doing brave work if you are tuning in, and it's okay if that's really hard to do on your own, to motivate to do on your own. I still have to like write it down on a list and show up every day to say, no, I'm going within, I'm doing my practices, and it gets easier the more I practice, but it's okay. Some people feel bad. They say to me, I don't know how. And even with recordings from you, it feels like I have to drag myself there and it's such a fight. Look, resistance is an extremely normal part of the transformation process. It is. And I think part of that, and we'll get into this in this episode, is because we need space. If you're doing healing work and, you know, you had a big healing and then you're in resistance for a week or two, you probably need to integrate. You probably feel like, I can't go back there. A lot got unearthed and I need some space to like let it settle in my system. That's legit. That's real. If you are always in avoidance and resistance, your nervous system does not feel safe to do the healing work. And that really needs to happen in titration. This is why we start with teeny tiny bits of breath. This is why we're not like, okay, come heal in a 2-hour breathwork journey where you're huffing and puffing the whole time and you might feel like you're having a panic attack, but don't worry, at the end you'll feel good, and then you'll go home and, you know, never want to do breath work again because that was way too overwhelming, right? bite-sized micro doses, little bits are part of what helps us heal. And I want to touch on an important topic today in the vein of what I'm already kind of playing with here about when healing makes us feel worse. Understanding the healing crisis, as it can be known as in the physical realm. You know, when I first started doing detox work and healing work 15 years ago, try and deal with my food sensitivities and my leaky gut and all of those things that were, what I thought were the root problem, the main problem. I now understand that nervous system and unhealed trauma is at the root, and that doesn't mean that leaky gut and food sensitivities aren't real. Trust me, they are, and they can more easily heal and resolve when we are doing the deeper work. But when I first started doing the healing work, I'd start a protocol. I'd start taking some, let's say, candida killing supplements or parasite herbs, and feel freaking awful. Awful. This is so bad. I'm allergic to this herb. This supplement makes me feel bad was my first response, until I learned that actually the Herxheimer reaction is what it is often called, or the healing crisis, that the body has to deal with and process the load of pathogens, toxins, yeast, bacteria, virus that is being killed off in it. And until it can move its way out of the body, it's going to be really uncomfortable. And so with that as my introduction to how I understood the healing process to work, do some healing work, kind of feel a little worse, back it up, take care of yourself, titrate little by little, drink more water, get more rest. Once I understood that, I could now apply it to the healing crisis that happens for many of us when we do the emotional and the energetic and the spiritual work. So I want to really see you and hear you. If you have resistance around doing healing work, it may be because in the past you've done some healing work and the healing crisis that followed it was overwhelming in and of itself. Your system couldn't organize itself and the symptoms were too uncomfortable, and you may have unconsciously or consciously said, like, yeah, I'm good. I'd rather stay in the realm where I feel like I'm in control than in the realm where it feels like everything is falling apart. Okay, it's not, the healing crisis is not a sign that you're failing. It's not a sign that you're allergic to the medicine, although that's always a possibility. It's not a sign that the mushroom, the sacrament, is making you feel depressed and sad, or that breath work causes you to feel your heart pounding harder, and that just reminds you of anxiety, right? There's so many ways that microdosing any amount of healing work is uncomfortable. And it's kind of a mind fuck for a lot of us, because we get into healing work to feel better. Like, how do I make all this uncomfortable shit go away? Oh, I need to heal it. Okay, let's go heal it. This healing is even more uncomfortable. It's messy. What am I doing wrong? You're not. You're not doing anything wrong. It's actually part of the cycle, the spiral of healing. So I like to think of healing work as a spiral, like a spiral that goes deeper and deeper. And, you see spirals a lot in spiritual work and Reiki and energy work, because they do represent that never-ending cycle of movement and progression into the healing space. We are never really done, right? It's not a linear line graph. So we're coming back around the spiral to some of the same themes, to some of the same triggers and ideas. But each time we do, perhaps we're doing it with from a more healed space with more perspective. And so you're coming around the spiral here, and autumn is a time when we're often invited into doing more healing work. Spring and fall are such naturally the change in seasons. The equinox is such a beautiful time to lean into healing work. And if you're going to lean in with the awareness that there could be some stuff that moves around when we do healing work. We could define the healing crisis as like a temporary, keyword here, temporary worsening of symptoms. This could be emotional symptoms, feeling.
Hey, beautiful soul. I just wanted to let you know that the Sacrament Shop is having a site-wide sale. Everything is 25% off through September 15th. And I want to make sure that you saw the emails about it. If you didn't, here's your nudge. Here's your reminder. We have our sacred mushroom sacrament. This is the main formula that we work with in this ministry. Deeply supportive for healing anything and everything that you set the intention to heal. That comes in 3 sizes. And of course, there's always complementary flower blends to support your nervous system and your practices. We have passion flower, which is amazing for anxiety, sleep, and even hormone balance. That's now in a 2-ounce bottle as well, since you loved it so much. And the soothing hibiscus blend that's just gorgeous, red, and just tastes like a ceremony. I love it. Tangy and sweet. You can use the coupon code LETGO at checkout, LETGO. That's our September theme. And take this as your nudge to restock or begin your ritual for the first time. Go ahead and visit the Sacrament Shop, www.embodiedmicrodosing.com/shop. I'll also put the link in the show notes, and let the medicine meet you where you are this September.
More teary, more emotional after an experience. A lot of people report this, especially after the group breathwork journeys. They might sit up and feel like, whoa, that was amazing. I felt so peaceful, or I felt so free, or I felt so open. And then the next day, like, I don't know, I got in the shower and I just like, whoa, I had all this cry come through. Like, congratulations, you're doing it right. Those emotions moving is that continued purging of the energy. Of the emotions that have been unexpressed in your symptoms. So let them come. It's an opportunity not to suppress. Physical symptoms absolutely can be a big part of what shows up after or even during a healing experience. You know, cramping, tingling, nausea, random pain. Hey, I thought I had sciatica pain, but during this session I had a weird shoulder pain. What's that about? And then, you know, it never ceases to amaze me during larger dose mushroom and MDMA journeys, the stuff that happens towards the end of the journey. I've had 2 or 3 women have begin their bleed or have a spot, just one spot. They were not necessarily due to start their cycle, but the medicine literally healed the womb, something in the womb space. And what happens is a physical symptom, a physical bleeding, a release. Just as an example of some of the physical things that can happen. Of course, spiritual flu. Many of us know this one, catching a cold or flu right after a big healing. Very normal, very typical. And in fact, as I'll get to, I think actually a great sign that you are doing good healing work. Let these things be confirmation, like, yep, I moved some shit around because I'm feeling it. And then of course the spiritual shifts that can happen, you know, feeling like you're under more of an attack with some of the negative shadows and protective parts, or feeling like you've got communication coming through from ancestors or, you know, other energies that want your attention. That can be really unsettling once you've kind of opened this door. And so we'll talk more about how to show up in the face of that in this episode. Just reminding you, you're releasing stored unexpressed energy, and this is what and changing your beliefs, literally changing your beliefs at a core level. It's like the foundation of little you is shifting under the surface. So yes, it's going to feel messy. And then, like, you know, not just I did a healing and I felt bad for a week and now I feel better. Some people, especially at the beginning of their awakening, experience that dark night of the soul. That the spiritual awakening. They like, oh my gosh, I can finally see and understand the truth, and I see myself, and I understand how I've been getting in my own way, and I see what's wrong with the world and what's right with having a more spiritual framework. And I kind of want to just lay down and cry and die because it all just feels so overwhelming and dark. So that, you know, the healing crisis can happen over longer periods, and that's when we do our best seeking, right? And when we can do our best seeking, when we can discover the tools and the teachers and the practices that are going to help us forge our individual unique path to a more whole self. So let's dig in. I just want to touch on how specifically the sacred mushroom, medicines like psilocybin and other sacred plant medicines that you might work with really open the door to the unconscious. Like, we don't work with psychedelics in small or large doses to be drugged, right? And to have an escaped experience, to dissociate from the experience of life. They bring the unconscious to the conscious. Okay, the sacred mushroom doesn't show you what's like nice. It shows you what's true. It shows you what you need to know. And that's what can kind of make it a bear to work with sometimes, even in microdoses, even as it helps you feel better and more settled in your system. It can also help you really move a big burst of emotional energy and rage around something that you've been suppressing for a long time. It's that movement of energy we talk about so much here on the podcast and inside the ministry. So, big journey or small, breathwork journey or mushroom journey or ayahuasca journey, it doesn't matter. These journeys are unboxing this repressed grief and the unprocessed trauma and the core wounds and negative beliefs you formed that we can't do the healing work without allowing it to surface, right? This is a necessary step in healing. And it can feel really confusing, especially if the symptoms are making us feel worse, depression, disorientation, anxiety, all of that, right? Remember that it's a sacred unraveling. It's helping you process, alchemize, and move who you are not so that you can make room for who you are becoming. That's what I want you to take away here. So the somatic practices, look, we are embodied microdosing for a reason. There's the microdosing, there's the medicine, and then there's the body and the breath, right? The breath work, the movement, the dance, the voice, the intuitive movement. This can also wake up some of these dormant energies because our bodies don't forget. We know that. And so when we finally begin to listen, when we finally begin to allow this all to be seen and heard and moved, sometimes the body is like, okay, you want me to talk? Thank God, I've got a lot to say. And this is where the somatic practices, where they can be part of the expression of what needs to come out. They are also the medicine for supporting you through allowing that release. I'm thinking of like, open your mouth and you start screaming, right? It's like the scream can start the energy, the flow of energy. And then what follows is a huge wave of emotion because like finally we've unlocked this, right? And then that huge wave of emotion, you realize I need to sob, and then you support yourself in sobbing, letting your whole body feel that sob, stretching your arms out, opening your chest, breathing in big breaths, right? Finally, and allowing that energy to move and using the somatic practices, wrapping yourself in a hug, gently touching your skin to excite, to wake up your nerve endings. Simple little embodiment practices we do in Breathwork Church and that I teach inside the ministry, these little ways that you can tone your vagus nerve and support your system to release and resolve and then come back to regulation in your own system. So it could feel chaotic at first in that scream, right? Oh my gosh, I'm unraveling, I'm breaking down, right? And then when we come back to the hug a minute, 2-3 minutes later, where you've resolved and allowed it to move and now you're holding yourself, oh my gosh, this embodiment work is the beginning, the middle, and the end of how you can walk yourself through the process of healing in this way. So let's talk about it. Let's unravel it. Like, what is this like crazy phenomenon? Let me give you an example of somebody that I worked with recently. So this woman is extraordinary. She's doing healing work in her 60s. She has a lot of childhood trauma that she spent decades in therapy processing. So she has a great understanding of herself and the people in her life and how she grew up. She's a wonderful person to sit with and talk to. And she carries a lot of physical symptoms, especially as she's aging, pesky, annoying symptoms that don't have a root. She's been to all the doctors, right? It's all the like mystery symptoms. There's nothing wrong here. And this makes me really uncomfortable. I'm not well. And I just need more support. So she was finally ready to dig into the deeper layers, and we did a private session, an in-person session in Wilmington, North Carolina, and worked with a generous microdose, not a psychedelic dose. She was able to drive home 2 hours later, but a generous microdose with the sacrament, and some very moderate breath work and energy work, just kind of feeling through what wants to come through, what wants to move. I really grounded her first in her root chakra, and we got her connected to the earth, and we got that breath moving, and we invited in her spiritual support. And wow, did this beautiful human have a massive ancestral wound healing, womb healing. It was a wound healing, but it was very focused on her womb. She felt her mother. She felt her grandmother. She felt herself in utero. She felt the lineage and the connection of all of the grief and all of the abuse in the line of women that she came from. She felt it in her womb space. And so we brought breath, and we brought prayer, and we brought intention, and we brought her own hands and her own touch and her own care. And we allowed tons of emotion and tears and energy and realizations and all of that to move over the course of the session. Beautiful, right? Just beautiful. During the healing, her feet, her toes, she was barefoot, her toes were cramping up. That's not uncommon in healing work. I'll get to minerals in a minute. I'm going to write that down so I don't forget. But her toes were cramping up. And I asked her, does this happen a lot? And she said, it does. It does happen sometimes, but not like this. So it happens a little bit at home, and in the healing, and when we're moving the energy, whoa, it's like they're stuck. They're cramped open or cramped shut. They're really clenching on. So we made note of that. I made note of that, and I advised her to take good care of herself. I even did suggest some additional magnesium for her. I felt that her muscles were asking for that, and advised her to drink more water, take good care of herself, and just chill over the next couple days. What ends up happening is that these huge waves of what feels like anxiety, she calls them waves, these huge waves rise up in her several times per day. Nothing she's ever felt before. It feels like anxiety. It feels like something is wrong. It feels like panic. My heart is racing. I feel dizzy. And this started after the session, right? This is like brave work for me to share this with you, because I'm always afraid. People who are used to healing work are like, yep, of course that happened. That's all part of it. Someone who's newer is like, I'm not going to do any healing work. This sounds awful. Because within a week of the session, about 5 days, she called an ambulance and went to the emergency room because she was so frightened by the magnitude of these waves that were coming over her. What the ER ended up saying was, it looks like a panic attack, right? I think they see a good bit of panic attacks in the emergency room, but she's doing her due diligence and checking with the cardiologist and doing everything to make sure everything is okay on the physical level. It appears that it is, and what's going on is that we opened some energy. We opened some healing. What's coming through our memories now from her childhood? What's coming through our ancestors, uncles and aunts who have long been gone but are knocking at her door? She's remembering them, remembering things. And this happens with therapy too, right? This happens with a lot of modalities. I think it can feel really especially powerful when we work with the body and the breath and psychedelics, because it's like, let's open Pandora's box. Let's go. This is what these things are designed to do. This is why we work in titration, and want to normalize that this could happen certainly after a good therapy session too. These memories and these feelings rising up. So her waves eventually led her to, I'm scared and this needs to stop, and I need to make sure that I'm not going to die. And the confirmation that came back was, it would probably a panic attack, and you're low on minerals. She was low on potassium. And I had said to her when I saw the foot cramping, I think you need magnesium. So potassium's probably more accurate, especially because that's what her blood work revealed, and all trace minerals. I want to touch on minerals here for a second. So we'll get back to this example of this brave self-healer in a minute. But I really think this is an overlooked piece here, and I want to start inviting you to take more trace minerals, take more salt, take more of the huge important minerals that you kind of can't get enough of when it comes to magnesium, especially if you're getting these things from food sources. She needs potassium, great coconut water, bananas, magnesium. I mean, I am a huge fan of the Epsom salt bath, especially after a healing. I highly, highly suggest it. And I want you to take more. One of the ways that I help people do this is through a salt dose. I learned this from a teacher, Heather Gordy, super talented. And she taught it as an energy clearing practice. I always use salt on the tongue as just like, oh, we need electrolytes, not realizing, oh, of course, salt is so cleansing. So take a pinch of a high quality sea salt, like a Baja Gold or real salt in Yuha or a Celtic sea salt, and place that pinch right on your tongue. Some people do it under the tongue, and just let yourself taste the saltiness of it for a minute, 30 seconds, and then take some water and swallow it. This is an amazing practice for replenishing some of those trace minerals after a session, for cleansing, like when you get home from a public place, or for protecting your energy field before you go out. See if you can. I now even have a little container of salt at my desk, and when I'm feeling really off and like I can't quite get myself there with a little bit of breath or embodiment practices or any of the tinctures and medicines I work with, I actually just need salt. I need to go down to the earth. Talk about grounding. So more minerals in healing work, because I think sometimes some of the physical symptoms especially, and the emotional ones too, are not just, oh, it's all energy, it's all energetic. Your energy body, your physical body, your emotional body, everything is connected. Everything is responding to everything else. So give yourself the trace minerals. I heard someone say years ago, minerals are like the spark plugs in a car. They're so tiny, but they're so important. If you don't have your spark plugs, the car won't go, right? So give yourself those minerals and allow your system to go. So anyway, back to the self-healer. She's doing beautiful work now. We're meeting weekly, and she is aware that, oh wow, I've opened something up and there's stuff here under the hood, under the surface that I did not get to in those decades of therapy, and I don't have to understand it all. She spent decades trying to understand it in her head. If I could just understand what happened, then maybe I'll feel better. We know that that's just one teeny slice of the pie of what we need. Sometimes, not always. Trust me, there's plenty of stuff I still don't understand, but I can bring healing to. And she's now working to resolve it in the body, in the spirit, in the energy field. And yes, there's physical symptoms happening as these waves come. And as each wave comes, here's what I've encouraged her to do. And here's what I'm going to encourage you to do when you feel your symptoms rising in the healing crisis or anytime. That is actually your moment to tap into and anchor into a healing. You can give yourself a healing when you are most triggered. In fact, that's the time to do it, because when we're well, we're like, meh, I'm good. I'm going to go do all the things I want to do and not focus on healing work. When you are unwell, your body, your mind, your spirit are saying, help me, see me, hold me. I need something from you. So right there in that moment, that's your chance to take a breath, to close your eyes, to go within, to hold yourself and to say, what's here? What's here? And how can I offer myself some support in this place? What can I give myself somatically, energetically? What medicine can I work with? Knowing there's a whole toolbox of medicines to walk myself through this. So consider that. I also want you to remember, like, here's the science piece in this, because what I say in the intro to this is that where we blend spirituality and science, because I really do want to do that. I don't want to forget in each episode to give you a little piece of science, because that's the like for many of us, many skeptics, it's like, okay, I believe in the spiritual, I believe in the energetic, but as soon as the science reinforces it, hell yes, then I'm in. It's not one or the other. It's at the intersection of both spirituality and science where I am most sold. So I want to remind you of polyvagal theory, right? The polyvagal ladder, if you are not familiar with this, that we have these nervous system states. Imagine a ladder, and at the bottom of the ladder is dorsal vagal. You don't have to remember that, but that's where you're in freeze. That's where you're numb. That's where you flopped. That's where you play dead. Those are the parts of your life that's severe depression, or I can't get out of bed, or these, chronic fatigue syndrome, and the ways that our bodies will completely shut down and go into that numb place as a survival mechanism. That's when your vagus nerve is in the dorsal state, and that's the bottom of the polyvagal ladder. As you move up the ladder, the middle of the ladder is the sympathetic activation. That's your sympathetic nervous system. That's the fight or flight, the one that most of us are super familiar with. Those are the sensations of anxiety that many of us experience and interpret and label as bad, when in reality it's activation from the nervous system that needs to be appropriately discharged or used or directed or seen to shift, and for us to be able to climb further up the ladder into ventral vagal. That's ideal, that's regulated, that's when we feel safe, that's when we feel grounded, that's when we feel most importantly connected to ourselves, connected to God, connected to others. So if you have spent time, and if you are in even low-grade dorsal vagal, you don't have to be like checked out and super depressed. There's a lot of high-functioning dorsal vagal people out there who are just numb, walking around numb. And I won't say that this particular client lived in that space, but she was disconnected from her physical experience, largely disconnected from it, and was very much living in her head. So when we opened the nervous system, essentially, when we gave it permission to move, she went from the bottom of the ladder and is moving up towards ventral vagal, towards safe, towards grounded, towards connected, but you can't skip the middle of the ladder. You can't get to grounded and connected without moving through sympathetic activation, essentially. You can't get to parasympathetic if you don't pass through the sympathetic, at least as we see it in this polyvagal framework. So very normal for people to feel an increase in that anxious sympathetic activation as they are learning to get to regulation. And let's remember here, getting to ventral vagal, getting to regulation is not like the final destination and then we're done. Oh, good, I'm at the top of the ladder now. Done, right? Are you going to live at the top of a ladder? No, you're going to go up and down that ladder. You're going to use it as a tool. Your nervous system is meant to be traveled up and down. We just don't want to stay stuck. The good news is that if you are moving from a more frozen, dissociated state into a more connected state and you're feeling this increase in activation, that means it's working. That means you are moving up the polyvagal ladder. Applause, applause, right? But we look at the symptom and we go, oh, fuck no. This is too much. I'm going back down there. I don't care that I was dissociated. I liked it and it felt safer down there. Okay, so there is a lot that comes with expanding, with moving, with elevating, with up-leveling in the way that we're talking about. And I just want to normalize that if you feel an increase in activation, there is a certain amount of that is verified by science and pretty damn good evidence that you are making progress. Okay, you pass through dysregulation before you land in safety. It's that anxiety and agitation is often a sign you're coming out of shutdown, whatever shutdown has been for you, not spiraling out of control. And it's going to be about discernment and connecting with practitioners who understand all of this to know where am I? Am I like moving up the polyvagal ladder, or am I actually just having a nervous breakdown, right? And I want to just remind you here, I say this a lot, breakdowns lead to breakthroughs. And often if what you want is a breakthrough, you're going to have to experience a breakdown, right? Everybody wants a big breakthrough and an expansion without any discomfort, and it's not how it goes. It's universal law here. Okay, continuing on. I'm so glad I shared that example of the client because I'm just so proud of her and the work that she's doing. And now she's sold. Now she's like, when are we going to breathe? When am I going to feel? Let's tune in and see what my body thinks. In the last session, I said to her, well, what do you want to get out of this? And she goes, oh, I don't know. Let's go in and ask, let's see. So fun to be in that curious place, even with these uncomfortable waves of energy still rising up in her. The waves of energy are the continual reminder to her to anchor back into the healing work. Without those, there's a message there, right? There's a message in your symptom. What's your wave right now? The more you try and make it go away, guess what? The louder it gets, the more insistent it is. It's like trying to get a small child to, leave you alone and go play by themselves when they're highly social and want to interact. Speaking of my small child, who's not that small anymore, he'll be 9 next month. But, trying to get him, distract him, look over here is never as effective as giving him my undivided attention and then laying a boundary. I'm not available. But trying to be unavailable when he hasn't connected with me is not successful. Give him that connection, help him feel that safety, and then send him off. I'm going to ask you to connect with the symptoms that you're experiencing and the parts of yourself that are rising up, asking to be seen in the same way. Give them your attention. What do you need? Why are you here? What is your sacred message, anxiety? And change the way you relate instead of, fuck, the anxiety's here. How do I make it go away? It seems antithetical, right? I get a pain in my shoulder. The first thing I think is like, okay, how are we going to address this? What supplements? What yoga move? How am I going to make this go away? Nothing has been more effective than me putting my hand on my shoulder and saying, I'm here. What do you need? And sending a few breaths. And then maybe what comes through at the end of a little healing there is, it would feel really good to stretch. And then I start intuitively doing that. But that pain in my shoulder is very much connected to the part of me that feels like she needs to shoulder the burdens of everybody around her all the time. And that pain doesn't just act up when I've eaten a bunch of foods that trigger me and forgotten to do some yoga. That pain is the loudest when I am preoccupied with how to fix somebody else's health or make somebody be or do a way that I think they should be or do. So connecting with my shoulder has helped me see that part of me is connected to the pain there and be in relationship. Thanks for letting me share that. Let's see what else wants to come through here. Okay, let's talk about how to call back our power. Let's talk about how to clear energy. Let's talk about how to work with what comes up, because not every wave of energy or wave of anxiety or physical symptom that comes up during the healing practice is meant to be like, is yours, first of all. Not all of it's yours to deal with, to connect with, to talk to figure out, to hold, right? We often take on way too much responsibility. How can we kind of button up our field, zip up our field a little more, and seal up some of that porousness that happens in the energetic field that allows a lot of this energy in and somehow makes us think we have to hold it and not to let it go out. It's like a screen door where like everything's coming in, everything shitty's coming in. There's like gnats that can fit through it, but we're never feeling the fresh air or allowing ourselves to go over to it and breathe out. It should go in both directions. If it's porous, let's release and maybe seal up any patches in the screen door, Not sure how good that metaphor is, but I feel like you might be following me. So we've got to clear what isn't yours, and you've got to call your power back. You've got to call your energy back. You've got to call the parts of you that you left all over the damn world, all over the county, all over your town, all over your state, all over this country, every time that you abandoned yourself, chose somebody else, chose to fawn instead of to meet your own needs. Not to shame you. We all do this for survival, and there's so much cultural conditioning around it all. But I'm going to teach you, I'm going to do a little power prayer here, a power and protection prayer, and ask you to repeat it after me. I'll be sharing the PDF for this prayer inside the ministry app. So come on in, check out the show notes if you want to come get it. It'll be a free and instant download. And I'm offering this because I think it's such a powerful way to lay down a clear boundary and to start cloaking yourself in light and protection, to understand that it's a daily practice of protecting your energy and clearing what's not yours. It goes in two directions, okay? Clear away and call back. And you can do that through a simple one-page prayer that you print out and read every day. I'm actually going to ask you to repeat it after me in this session. So here we go. This is to acknowledge and deal with spiritual attacks and energetic interference and allow you to step into a more powerful place inside of yourself as you do this healing work. Ready? I call this the power and protection prayer. And I first heard it on social media. I cannot find someone to credit it to. Please let me know if you know who spoke it. And I'm going to say each line and invite you to repeat it after me. I call my power back to me from every person, place, and entity. From every space, portal, time, and dimension. From every connection, attachment, and vessel where I left it. Anyone or anything that is attempting to siphon my energy, you do not have my consent to use my vitality. I call my power back. I now release that which is not my own. I lay down the weight that doesn't belong to me as well as the weight that does. I forgive all things, all people, all others. I forgive myself. I cloak myself in a bright light of protection, impenetrable. I shed light to my shadows and lovingly work through all insecurities, flaws, and self-destructive habits that cause me not to flow in the ways I was created to. I honor these parts of myself, and I love them to life. Any and every soul tie is now disconnected. I call my power back. Whew. It gives me chills. How did it feel to speak some of those words out loud? How would it feel every day to call your own power back? I think this is a really powerful way. Whenever I'm working with someone one-on-one, I want them to speak this prayer out loud every day. This is a really powerful way to mitigate and to work with that movement of energies. Of course, your somatic practices, of course, being embodied, of course, moving energy, of course, letting those feelings and emotions flow, of course, working with sacred medicines in moderate doses. Yes to all of those things. And when can you just anchor into a badass prayer and use your words spoken out loud to empower yourself and to heal yourself in real time? Inviting you again to download that prayer inside the ministry. If you want to book a one-on-one with me, I will put the link to do that as well inside this episode. I am so excited to be working with people again, and want to remind you here just that this is a process. This is all such a process, right? It's not a one and done. You can't just do a program or a protocol and be like, phew, I'm past that. It's very cyclical. That spiral is real, and it is amazing to me when I come back around the spiral to the 3 or 4 very familiar things that trigger me and realize like, okay, I am triggered, I am activated around this. And wow, when I think about how I used to get triggered last year around this, how I would just literally lose myself for hours or days. And you know, years ago for weeks and months and years, and was permanently lost in it. And now there is so much contrast when I go into it. I'm like, oh yeah, I used to feel this all the time. Wild. Nope, here I am 10 minutes, 15 minutes working through it, moving through it, and maybe for a day or two I'm reinforcing things and I'm staying close to myself, patting my heart, holding myself there, leaning into more self-care practices because I don't want to allow that old belief to take me down an old path. I want to honor what's there. I'm not going to avoid it and pretend it's not happening. And I am going to continuously move myself around that spiral into a new place, into the higher beliefs, into the true beliefs and the truth of who I am. Remember that when you're doing this grounding foods, you know, protein, mineral-rich water, walks in nature without your device, some movement, salt baths, that salt dose on your tongue, journaling, prayer, talking to a friend, surrounding yourself with support, people who understand the path that you're on. That's why the ministry, the embodied microdosing ministry, can be just such medicine. There was such a feeling of community in church on Sunday. I want to encourage you to try and make it live one Sunday, the first Sunday of every month at 11 a.m. This is a completely free offering in the ministry, just a chance to literally taste the medicines here and to be held. And there was such a feeling of community. There's someone who regularly comes who couldn't make it, and she posted on the app today, like, I was so sad to miss community with you all. I'm going to do the replay, but like, I miss the community. So let yourself connect in to that if it feels like it's calling you. You're breaking through. You're doing it. You're not broken. You're having a breakthrough, and there might be a lot that's breaking down. Remember to care for yourself through it. Reach out if you need help. Know that there's a normal amount of symptoms that happen in the aftermath and in the healing work. And I'm sending you so much love and compassion to stay with it. Stay gentle with yourself. Be gentle with yourself. This is really sacred, powerful work. Thank you for being here. I can't wait to continue this conversation. I am feeling more of the flow now that summer's over, hopefully getting back to weekly episodes. Thanks for your patience. And please do share this episode. Like it, review it, click on all the things to share it with a friend if you think that they could benefit from it. And thank you for your support in this work and in this ministry. I'm so glad you're here.